Disney's The Little Mermaid made a big splash in 1989, and it began a new phase of success for the animated studio. Let's venture into the depths and see what secrets and Easter eggs lie under the sea. The story of Ariel, the young mermaid who sacrifices her greatest gift in order to go get a prince to fall in love with her, has received a bit of backlash from newer audiences, considering its maybe less than feminist narrative. But did you know that for her time, Ariel was much more progressive than Disney princesses before her? For one thing, The Little Mermaid marks the first time a Disney princess came to the rescue of their prince. Twice, even. First, near the beginning after Prince Eric's ship explodes in the storm, and once more when he's taken underwater by the evil Ursula's eels, Flotsam and Jetsam. Before that, princesses usually fell under a spell, or asleep, or victim to indentured servitude since she couldn't seal the deal before curfew. See? Progress! One of Ariel's most defining traits, aside from her beautiful voice and obvious fin, is her long red hair. This was a very deliberate choice on the part of the filmmakers. Why, you ask? They wanted to make sure she didn't look like another cinematic sea siren, the blonde-locked mermaid Madison, played by Daryl Hannah in the romantic comedy Splash, which came out just 5 years before. Unlike Madison, there was one notable subject the animators were sure to emulate in their modeling of Ariel, and that's the Little Mermaid statue found in Copenhagen Harbor in Denmark. The statue was created by Edvard Eriksson, and both the statue and Ariel were inspired by the original fairy tale of The Little Mermaid, written by Hans Christian Andersen. Andersen also wrote The Snow Queen, which would later be adapted by Disney Animated Studios into another tide-changing hit for the company, Frozen. Take a look at the moment Prince Eric finds the muted Ariel on the rock. She's in the same pose as the Little Mermaid statue. In fact, there are many other points in the movie where she takes on a similar pose. Another artist's work is featured in the movie. Take a look at Ariel's Cavern of Wonders. At one point during the iconic musical number Part of Your World, Ariel sings, "What's a Fire?" while studying a painting of a woman looking at a candle. That's not just any painting, that's Magdalene with the Smoking Flame by Georges de la Tour, a deceivingly simple work depicting Mary Magdalene from the Bible, another complicated and misunderstood female figure. There are more cameos to be found in The Little Mermaid, and they will be very recognizable, but are you fast enough to see them? Pay attention to the audience as King Triton makes his entrance, and you might just find some old friends. Blink and you'll miss him, but there's a secret Mickey in the crowd. And he's brought along a secret Goofy and Donald, too. But wait, they're not the only celebs in the audience today. Back it up a little bit, and you might see an old friend that's more accustomed to life in the water. Swampy water, that is. It's Kermit the Frog. There are also some surprise guests who were able to make it to Vanessa and Eric's wedding on short notice. Pause when Max gets loose and you'll find both the King and the Grand Duke from Cinderella have come to celebrate the couple's short-lived, not gonna be a happily ever after. Vanessa is actually the sea witch Ursula in disguise. It seems Ariel gets too close to sealing the deal with Eric, so Ursula takes matters into her own hands. When Ursula transforms herself into Vanessa to bewitch Eric, she grabs a glass ball with a butterfly for her spell. Seems sort of random, until you realize that Vanessa is also the name of a type of butterfly. You might be asking yourself, sure, Ariel doesn't have her voice anymore, but how in the heck did Eric mistake the dark-haired Vanessa for the red-haired Ariel? Let's back up and look at the first time he catches a glimpse of Ariel in the sand. Ah, there we go. The sun is actually giving Ariel a harsh light from behind, shading her and making her hair look just as dark as Vanessa's. Regarding Ursula's true form, inspiration for her larger-than-life features and persona came from a few sources. First, Madame Medusa, who was the Disney villain from Disney's 1977 adventure The Rescuers. She's also drawn from a more counterculture figure, Divine, who's best known for performing in John Waters films such as Pink Flamingos and Hairspray. Ursula was voiced by Pat Carroll. Pat had been an actor and voiceover artist since the 60s, but it wasn't until 1989 that she landed her lifelong ambition, voicing a character in a Disney movie. For her, the opportunity to play Ursula was an answer to a prayer, and what a performance she gives! Pat Carroll had her own inspirations too. She modeled Ursula's voice after classic stage and screen star Tallulah Bankhead, famous for Alfred Hitchcock's thriller Lifeboat, as well as Maurice Evans, who plays Dr. Zaius in the 1968 release of Planet of the Apes. When it came to her evil little ditty, Poor Unfortunate Souls, which she sings to pressure Ariel into giving up her voice, Pat drew from another artist, the movie's producer and lyricist Howard Ashman. She had the Music Man perform the song for her one last time before recording it to make sure she got it right. As she tells it, Ashman went all out with the character and even incorporated ad-libs that Carroll also added to her performance. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One character who everyone seems to be fixing to get fixed is Prince Eric, voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes. Would it surprise you to know that Barnes was only 16 years old when he voiced the part of Eric? What's more, he beat out the likes of Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick for the part. I wouldn't feel too bad for Matthew Broderick, though. He would go on to play grown-up Simba in The Lion King. And I wouldn't feel too bad for Jim Carrey either because, well, you know, he's Jim Carrey. As for Ariel, she's voiced by Jodie Benson, who you might also recognize as the voice of Barbie in the Toy Story series. Ariel's physical likeness was inspired by model and actress Christie Brinkley, as well as young actress Alyssa Milano, who was 16 at the time. But did you know that a live-action actor was hired to perform Ariel's movements? Actor and comedian Sherry Stoner was brought in to improvise scenes from the script to help make Ariel's performance feel more authentic. Animators would later draw over the footage of her movements in order to animate the film. Stoner would later do the same thing for the character of Belle in Beauty and the Beast. There are also little tributes to the princesses that went before Ariel, especially when it comes to her wardrobe up on land. Take a look at the dress she wears to dinner with Eric. The draping is longer, but the cut is reminiscent of Cinderella's ball gown. Next, check out the cut of her sleeves near her shoulders. They're puffy with diamond designs, kinda like the puffy sleeves with teardrops worn by Snow White. And finally, those sleeves come down to a point at the wrist, and the neckline is off the shoulder, just like Princess Aurora's gown in Sleeping Beauty, whether it's blue or pink. Real quick, regarding the dinner scene, jump back to the beginning to that first wide, spacious shot of the dining room. Did you see the portraits on the wall to the left? The middle painting seems to bear a resemblance to another royal couple, Prince Philip and Princess Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. Could Prince Eric actually know them? Maybe he's related to them. Just as memorable characters and flourishes from other films show up in The Little Mermaid, Easter eggs from The Little Mermaid show up in other movies too. In a Goofy movie, Max takes over the assembly with a song and dance number in order to impress Roxanne. After Max is left literally hanging, check out the scenery backstage behind PJ and Bobby. There's Ariel. The Little Mermaid makes an appearance in 2010's Disney animated hit Tangled. During Rapunzel's day of festive fun in the kingdom, the dance sequence becomes a montage, and at one point we find Rapunzel and Flynn in what appears to be a bookstore, looking at a map. They're surrounded by other books, but look up toward the top of the frame on the little table with the lute leaning against it. The book you see is, you guessed it, The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid represents in a big way in the Big Easy. That's New Orleans to the uninitiated, which is where Disney's The Princess and the Frog takes place. Gotta love a Mardi Gras parade. You don't have to go looking too hard for this Easter egg, it's larger than life. A parade float of King Triton. This next one is probably the most famous of Little Mermaid Easter eggs. In Aladdin, when Al asks the genie if he can make him a prince, Genie humorously goes rooting through a royal recipe book for a prince spell. When he finds the recipe for Alaskan King Crab, he gets pinched by an actual crab. But it's not just any crab, it's the orchestrating crustacean Sebastian, famous for trying to convince Ariel to remain submerged in the catchy Calypso ditty Under the Sea. Sebastian is voiced by Samuel E. Wright. Did you know that he was originally supposed to have an English accent? It was the idea of Howard Ashman that they give the character a Caribbean background. This is what gave Under the Sea its snappy Calypso beat and earned the song an Academy Award. Of course, nothing defines The Little Mermaid quite like Ariel's Part of Your World. The song set a precedent for Disney movies, being the first of what Howard Ashman called the I Want song, where the protagonist sings of the true desires of their heart early on, setting the plot in motion in a very emotional way. Think Belle in Beauty and the Beast, I Just Can't Wait to Be King from The Lion King, For the First Time in Forever in Frozen, the list goes on and on. Did you know that Part of Your World was almost cut from the movie? Jeffery Katzenberg, who was the executive in charge of the movie's production, thought the song was boring and felt it was too far above kids' heads. At one point, Disney screen tested the song with unfinished animation for a group of children, and the kids were restless during the number. Animator Glenn Keane encouraged the producers to do a test screening for adult audiences, and after it proved to move some audience members to tears, it was decided that they should go ahead and keep it in the movie. Katzenberg later said that he was glad no one listened to him, and he couldn't imagine The Little Mermaid without the song. One of the most iconic moments of the musical number is when we see Ariel reaching out from the hole in her cavern toward the shore up above. Animator Glenn Keane was actually embarrassed to have created this moment because it seemed too cheesy to him at the time, but he couldn't change it because he was coming up against a deadline, so it stayed in. Years later, he met a young woman who said that moment in the movie was so moving, it made her want to take Ariel's hand and help her out of the water. He's been proud of that moment ever since. I hope you liked the video and found some cool things you missed when watching Disney's The Little Mermaid. Make sure you subscribe to Movie Logic for more daily movie facts, trivia, and Easter eggs.